Hello, I'm Dr. Jodi Richardson, and you're listening to, well, Hello Anxiety, a podcast where we end the struggle with anxiety and build our toolkit of practical skills to thrive. Hello, lovely listeners. Welcome back to another episode of the podcast. I have a podcaster in the hot seat today, and so there is going to be no shortage of things to talk about. I'm so excited to bring my friend and fellow podcaster Craig Harper on to join us again. Craig joined us early in the first few weeks of the podcast when I started, and Craig was just really such an amazing cheerleader and supporter for me when I was starting this journey over 2 years ago. So Craig, welcome and thank you for joining me.
Hi, Jo. Thanks for having me.
Thanks you.
For having me. I can't believe I got a second go at it.
I know. And for those of you who have been under a rock and do not know the wonderful Craig Harper, I will give you a little bit of background and introduce him, and just want to say, Craig, a huge thank you to you, because starting this journey was anxiety provoking, to say the least. And so Craig's been podcasting daily. Goodness, I'm weekly, and that's full on. So daily for a number of years. Craig is very experienced and inspirational, knowledgeable, very, very wise corporate speaker. He's a PhD scholar. Obviously, 2 podcasts, so a podcaster and an author multiple times over. What hats am I forgetting about you, Craig?
Oh, that's probably enough.
That's probably enough?
That's probably enough. Well, I'm an exercise scientist. You could chuck that in.
Yes. How could I
Did we
forget
say
that? No, I didn't say that. He's an exercise scientist. Yes, absolutely. That's really important. So thank you. Thank you,
Pleasure.
because I'm really in awe of you and what you do and the way that you support people. And on the way into the studio today, I was chatting with Carly Taylor. I gave her a call, and she was talking about one of the wise posts you'd put on Instagram today. And I really just appreciate the way that you think, the way that you share what you know, and how curious you are to keep learning. So Craig and I jumped on the phone the other day because I wanted to sort of chat to Craig about, you know, what we could talk about, because when it comes to somebody like you, Craig, that we could take this conversation in so many different directions, and listeners, we probably will. We probably will. But where we kind of landed was this idea, and it's not just an idea, it's a fact, that there is quite a large gap between us all having the information we need and then applying it in the ways that we need to. And so this was something we chatted about briefly on the phone the other day. Why do you think that was top of mind for you when we were kind of talking about what do you think might be really helpful for our listeners today?
Yeah. Well, firstly, thanks for having me. Look, here's the thing, right? Once a week or thereabouts, you do your podcast and you do corporate speaking and you share information, ideas, inspiration with the world via social media. You do, you've got your books and you've got a multiple range of platforms and mediums for connecting with people, and you share stuff to help people. I do the same. And I guess one of my observations or awarenesses is that I've been doing a version of this. Like, I'm 60. I started talking to audiences when I was 26. I started working with people one-on-one when I was 18, 19 in gyms, started personal training at 23. So I've spent my life talking to people about how we can optimize us, whatever that means. How do I be the best version of me? Whatever that means individually. So for me, that's like, how do I optimize my brain and my genetics and my body and my diet and my energy levels and my career and, what little ability I have? How do I optimize that? How do I get the most out of me? And what are my values? And what's my purpose? What's my reason? Why am I here? And I think sharing all that stuff with people is great, but I've noticed there's a big gap between people who read things or hear things or know things or learn things, and then the application of that information or those ideas or those philosophies. And so, one of my weaknesses or flaws is that I get frustrated periodically, and I get frustrated because I know that if I talk to, I talk to everything from 10 people in a boardroom to thousands of people in an auditorium, and I know that the majority of people who are nodding their head, putting up their hand, hearing themselves in my words, going, oh, yeah, he's right, I've got to do that or change that or make that decision, or I know that the majority won't follow through. Yeah. And that's not a criticism, that's just a practical reality.
Yeah.
And so I'm always thinking about, like, even with this chat, right? How do we have this chat? This is how I think as a podcaster and a teacher and an educator. How do we have this chat without alienating people?
Yeah.
Without offending people?
Yeah.
Because we also live in a time where it ain't real hard to offend someone.
Yeah.
You know, and my job is, my intention is never that. I want to inspire, I want to help, I want to support, I want to love, I want to encourage people. I definitely don't want to hurt their feelings or offend them. And so I think the key is, for me, the key is not how do I talk about stuff and give people more knowledge or more information, but rather how do I play a small role in being the catalyst that might get them to do it? Not just hear it, not just know it, but do it, because knowledge isn't enough. Knowledge is great, but knowledge without action, knowledge without application doesn't create shift in our practical three-dimensional world. Yeah. And so for those of us who say, I want to reduce my anxiety, I want to turn the chaos into calm, I want to change my body composition, I want to start a small business, I want to become a black belt like you in karate, I want to go from white belt to black belt, I want to whatever. All of these things are processes or journeys that we need to take. And, listening to something and knowing something doesn't require courage or effort. But applying the knowledge is where the courage and the effort and the time and the consistency and the discomfort and the inconvenience, that's where it's required. So, yeah, I don't want to be that guy that just spends 30 years talking about stuff that people don't apply. So that's something I'm always thinking about is how do I connect with this person or these people so that this might be not because of Craig Harper or not because of Jodi, but because you and I share a thought, an idea, an insight, something that for them is a tipping point or a light bulb or some kind of catalyst for them to actually get off the literal couch or the metaphoric couch and actually do something transformational.
I know. It's that tipping point, that light bulb moment, like you said, that inspiration that really moves somebody to do something different. And I know I've heard you speak. I've been in the audience at your conference, which of course I was obviously presenting at as well. And like you say, there is no shortage of information. And in fact, if we sat most people down and said, right, what could you do that would be good for you? Then everyone would have an answer. And we all know what we need to do for ourselves, and what I need to do might be different from what the next person needs to do. But it is, like you say, it's effort and courage, because it is hard to make a start. And I wonder if one of the things that stands in the way is this idea that I need to do more than I'm capable of. Whereas I put a post up the other day, and it's not like me to be quite absolute. I'm not controversial. I'm usually quite kind and gentle. But I think I just was super inspired. I'd done a CrossFit workout, and you know how amazing you feel when it's all over. It's, it's suffering during. I think I actually took a photo of the sweaty mark I'd left on the floor once. I'd passed out afterwards just about. Anyway, and I'm like, if you're not exercising, why not? And it's not like me to kind of say that, like, why aren't you doing this? It's so good for us. And there's this idea that, oh, well, I can't do CrossFit. Well, you don't have to do that. You don't have to be doing, like, lifting heavy weights. You don't have to be, doing a workout that involves burpees or, all sorts of dynamic movements. It's about starting somewhere and starting small and being consistent, isn't it? What do you say to that?
Yeah, I would be, like, well, what can you do? So my dad's 84. He had a heart attack recently. He's recovering.
Sorry.
He's got a bunch of issues, and he's been pretty immobile for the last 6 weeks. And so I saw him recently.
Yeah.
And he's 84 and he's skinny and he's lost lots of muscle, and obviously his function is, not awesome. And so I took him over to a chair. I said, can you sit on the chair? And I said, can you stand up, Dad? I go, stand up without putting your hands on your knees. And he stood up. I went, great. I go, can you do 3 of those? And he did. I go, great. Now, what I want you to do is I want you to do 8 times a day. So that could be an hour and a half apart. I want you to do 5 of them. That's it. Just 5, right? Because the thing is that, for Dad, my dad, Ron, 8 times 5 a day might be the same as you doing a 1 hour intense CrossFit class,
Yeah.
or me going for a run or me lifting some weights. But the question is, okay, I know that you're not super fit or strong or, whatever at the moment, perhaps, or you're a bit scared. I get it. That's not weak. That's not bad. That's human. You're a bit scared. Me too. I'm scared of 50 things.
Yeah.
It's okay to be scared, right? But tell me what you can do. What is one thing? Maybe the one thing that you do is going to take 2 minutes. In a day that has 1,440 minutes, maybe you're going to take 2 minutes to make a phone call that you should have made 3 months ago that you're scared of, to say to that person, look, what you said to me is not okay, or what I said to you is not okay, or can we have a coffee and chat, or maybe you enroll in a course online, or maybe you get on the floor and do some stretching, or like it's our willingness to do stuff that is not comfortable or convenient, which is paramount, because like the idea of self-improvement, personal development, whatever you want to call it, growth, learning, resilience building, the idea is not the same as the practical process. The idea is easy. We all love the idea of the destination, but we don't necessarily want to take the journey, because the journey is the rolling up of the sleeves, the doing of the work, the feeling the fear and doing it anyway. It's like, as you talk about much more eloquently than I'm anxious. Well, that's okay. You're not going to die. People get anxious. It's okay. You can still do things and be anxious, and I acknowledge it and I understand it, and you have my empathy, but also what can you do? Yeah. Despite being anxious, despite being scared, despite not liking discomfort, despite not liking uncertainty and unpredictability, despite not liking all of that stuff, which, by the way, me too. But despite all of that, what can you do? What's one little thing that you can do practically to create some momentum? Because it's like, here's my analogy. If you've ever tried to push a car where it's not in gear and the handbrake's not on, trying to push that car, depending on what car it is really hard. Yeah. But once that car is rolling, now you've got momentum. Same person pushing the same car, now we've got momentum. It's relatively easy.
Yes.
Well, that's kind of the same with taking action about the hard stuff, the stuff that we need to do. And it's so, and being, as you said, it's about being practical and realistic, and what can I do today to create some kind of, shift of the needle.
And the idea that came to me when I was picturing the car pushing was that if you've got somebody doing it next to you, it's so much easier to overcome that inertia, to 100%. Reference my Year 12 physics class, which I did not love. But that inertia is that resistance to movement. And so for some people it could be about having someone to go with, and that can make a difference. But I want to ask you this. If you were in front of a group of 10 strangers and you asked each of them to tell you why they're not doing what they know they need to, what do you think are the top 2 answers that people would give to why they won't take that first step and make a change despite knowing how powerful a difference it could make?
So this is where we need to put on our big boy, big girl pants and try and be sensitive and aware, but also honest, right? So I literally have been talking to people for 40 years about why they're not doing the things that they know that they should do.
Yeah.
And we need to differentiate between excuses and reasons. By the way, has Craig Harper made excuses? Millions. Have I tried to avoid responsibility? Yes. Have I blamed anything and everything except me? Yes. Have I made myself the victim? And yes, right? So it's acknowledging that, there's a difference between acknowledging that I need to do or change or be without beating myself up, but just stepping into self-awareness.
Yeah.
So what's always at the top of the excuse list is time. Now, time is a variable, but, here's something a bit controversial. People say, I'm time poor. I'm like, well, no, you're not. You're time equal. Because everyone has 24 hours a day, 1,440 minutes a day. How you use your minutes and hours is up to you. But in terms of your assigned quota, it's the same as my assigned quota, right? And so that's not to say time is not an issue, but I don't know that time is always the reason. I think it can be, but it's much easier to say, you know what, it's not me. It's not me, Jodi. It's my genetics. It's not me. It's my boss. It's not me. It's time. It's not me. It's the government. It's not me. It's that guy over there. It's not me. It's my ankle injury. And now I'm 50. And I've been saying a version of that since I was 30.
Yeah.
Now, I think it's really important to be able to own what we're doing and not doing without beating ourselves up, without self-loathing, but just courageously. Like, the biggest problem for me in my life is me. I am, as you know, I literally have a podcast called the You Project, and the reason that it's called that is because my biggest project will always be me.
Yeah.
Like managing my mind, managing my insecurity and my massive ego and my resources and my time and my talent and my biology and my psychology. And so, how do I get the most out of me, but I think the real reason for a lot of people is that, below the excuses, I think, by the way, before anyone sends me an email, I'm not saying time is never an issue. Of course it is. But I think the real reason is often just the fact that it's hard. Like, the thing that I need to do to create the shift I want to create is hard. Yeah. Like, when you went from being a white belt to a black belt in your martial art journey, you can't become highly skilled and resilient, and you can't develop mastery at a black belt level like you did without being a white belt and being somewhat hopeless.
Yeah.
Or at the very least,
yes,
not super skilled, not, you know what I mean? It's
totally.
Yeah, you could have a 13-year-old, beat you up, for want of a better term, right?
Oh, yeah.
Because they've got more experience, more skill, more fitness, blah, blah, blah. So how do you become a black belt? Well, you start as a white belt. That is, I don't have a lot of knowledge. I'm not super fit. I don't have any skills. I don't really have a lot of awareness. But I can't get that black belt. Now, whether that's a literal black belt in a martial art or a metaphoric black belt in another pursuit, we all start at the white belt level. So when I started my PhD, which was 4 and a bit years ago, I would say I wasn't even a white belt because I was aspiring to be a white belt. But how do you get better at research and study and understanding the academic kind of process at a PhD level and the environment and the language? And how do you get better? Well, you get better by immersing yourself in that thing that you're terrified of, that thing that challenges you. And so 4 and a bit years later, I'm definitely not a black belt, but I'm definitely not a white belt.
Yeah.
And, and it's just being willing to say, it's not necessarily going to be fun, quick, easy, or painless, but nonetheless, I'm in.
Yes. And the idea that the time will pass anyway. I posted this online on Instagram some weeks ago, and I remember that said to me a long time ago that no matter where you're at and what you're thinking about doing, well, whether or not you've got something that you want to do, it's going to take 2 years. Well, those 2 years are going to pass you by. So do you want, are you willing to commit to doing the thing that you say is important to you? Because in 2 years' time, you'll either have done it or you won't. The time's going to pass. And somebody, a psychologist actually who I'd interviewed on the podcast, Dr. Jill Stoddard, posted that she was contemplating returning to study to become a psychologist. And somebody said that to her, the time's going to pass anyway. How are we going to use it? And, and so she did it, and she's delighted that she did. And, I really applaud you because I know what you're doing is hard. It's extraordinarily hard no matter where you're starting. There's a huge amount to learn. But the rewards, and this is the thing, I suppose, we get rewards from our efforts, whether we are starting a walk 3 times a week that's literally to a couple of lampposts away from our home and back again. Yeah. The reward for your efforts will come. And it's just that inertia. It's getting that car rolling. Because like you say, once you get rolling, you get over that initial kind of fear and anxiety and what if I can't do it? What if I'm not good enough? What if I embarrass myself, if it's about joining an exercise class or something? All of those what if questions, and that's that future thinking that comes so hand in hand with anxiety. But if we can recognize it, that self-awareness that you were saying, that awareness, and just that awareness of, I notice I'm having these thoughts, just even stepping back, and we talk about metacognition before, you and me, on your podcast, and this idea of being able to sort of zoom out a bit and have a look at what's happening, what's going on in our thinking, and then being able to recognise, well, I'm having these thoughts, but I can still do something different. I'm having thoughts of doubt or, what if questions, asking myself really lots of worries perhaps, but we can have those thoughts, but we can actually still take the action. And you've done that, and I'm always so intrigued to know how you are going, and I'd like to ask you about that in a moment. But just the mere fact that you had something important that you wanted to start, and you darn well started, and 4.5 years later, look at you go. So how's it going? Tell us how it's going.
Yeah, it's going good. Look, one thing I want to add to what you said is I think there's a really unforgotten or unspoken about component of the personal transformation journey. So when we talk about, what are your goals, what are your timelines, what do you want to do, be, create, change, we're talking about results that we want to create in our world. Like, I want to build a business, I want to build a brand, I want to earn more dough, I want to be leaner, I want to run faster, I want to do a 3-hour marathon, I want to get a black belt, I want to do all of these things. And none of those things are bad. And depending on your values and your goals and your internal sat nav, those things can be great achievements. I think those things, even for me, are secondary to who I'm becoming. Because, see, here's the thing. When you are the person who pushes the metaphoric car and you push it every day, 10 days in, you put the same person pushing the same car over the same distance on the same surface, the same weight. Now the car is, in inverted commas, lighter, right? And well, of course it's not, but you're stronger. But what happens by day 200, like, that is so easy. Now you're putting people in the car because it's too easy, right? Now, the work that you're doing is the same, but experientially it is incredibly easier, not because the car has changed or the task has changed or the distance, but because you've changed, right? So when you are better, when you are stronger, when you have built resilience and understanding and awareness, and mental toughness, now the things that used to terrify you or be difficult are not. And it's not because the thing you're doing is of itself easier or lighter or more simple. It's just that you are now different. Yeah. So the thing that used to scare you doesn't scare you now. The 10-kilogram weight that used to be like overwhelmingly heavy is now effortless, right? It's still 10 kilos, but you're not the same. Yeah. So your relationship with 10 kilos has changed. Your relationship with standing in front of an audience and talking has changed. Your relationship with getting on the mat in the dojo has changed. Your relationship with, study. And this is the thing. Like, I think we have in our culture a very big external focus. When I can have that, when I can own that, earn that, look like that, get that, do that. All of those things, which, again, not bad things at all. But, there's this idea that success is about, what we have, what we earn, what we own, what we drive, where we live, what we look like, what people think of us, our brand, all these external things. But you and I and your listeners definitely know people, and maybe they are the people at times, I have been, where you're ticking all these boxes and you're achieving all these things, but in the middle of this apparent success, you're miserable, you're lonely, you're anxious. You are on a level successful, but on another level, you are mentally, emotionally, perhaps spiritually bankrupt. Yeah. And so it's like, I'm really interested in high performance, run fast, jump high, build a business, join the space program, become a black belt, explore your potential. I'm fascinated with that. But I'm more fascinated with that inner world. Like, the external world that everyone sees, it interests me. The internal world that nobody sees fascinates me. I'm obsessed with it, because you and I right now, as you've heard me say many times, we're in the same conversation, but not the same experience. Yeah. Your experience is not mine. Mine is not yours. Your personal reality right now is not mine. And if you have 10,000 people listening to this, we can't prove this, but I'm guessing that not one of the 10,000 listeners would have an identical experience for the 50 or so minutes that this will go. So that whole kind of curiosity around not only what do I want to do, be, create and change, but who do I want to become? How do I want to be? And how can I be the person that I'm not the overthinker anymore? I don't need, I was so insecure when I was really until I'm probably still a bit, if I'm being honest, but I mean, I'm talking about debilitatingly insecure until I was probably 30, and so I was always trying to do this, own that, achieve that, be big, be a bodybuilder, be terrifying, be ripped, be jacked, earn more money, and in the middle of all of that, I never really understood that I was trying to resolve internal issues with external solutions.
Yeah. I appreciate you sharing that. And I always am so grateful for how open and honest you are, because it helps us to look at ourselves. And I think I dare to say that everyone listening will be able to look at times, whether that's now or in the past, that they've done the same thing. And we know how that goes. We know how that goes. And I've told a funny story here in the past, when the kids are little, they're 13 and 15 now, but trying to sort of, as a parent, instill these ideas about life into kids without lecturing, just sort of sprinkling the years with little moments of, insight or a little bit of wisdom here or a little bit of curiosity there. And we talked about money and how, the old money can't buy you happiness, and money can buy experiences, and that's where we can get the joy through generally, that our stuff doesn't really matter. But it's and we were at the supermarket anyway, and my daughter found a 5-cent piece back in the days when there were coins around, and our son said, "No, that's not going to make you happy, Macca," and it was very cute. And I'm like, oh, interesting, because perhaps I started a bit young. I was probably a bit over enthusiastic about some of these messages, but just to kind of get across the idea that no matter what changes on the outside, and look, of course, I'm talking from a very, very privileged position of somebody who has a roof over my head and a full belly at night after a meal and has financial security. And I know that's not the case for everybody. And so, yes, absolutely, there is a threshold at which money can make a very, very big difference to us when we're, when we sort of get down to brass tacks. But on the whole, once you've got a roof over your head, you're safe and secure and fed and watered, and the extra things don't add up to more happiness. But sometimes it takes suffering amidst all of the goodness that you have around you to start to kind of really crack it open and really understand it, doesn't it? Did you? Was that how you kind of came to the understanding that you're at now? Was there a moment, a turning point, or how did you kind of evolve?
I think for me, so I set up the first personal training centre in Australia and the second as well. And by the time I was in my early 30s, I owned 5 businesses, and they're all standalone, bricks and mortar businesses. 3 of them were gyms, 2 of them were health associated businesses. And I had 100 staff, and I was just this ex-fat kid from Latrobe Valley who was like doing better than I could ever have. I didn't plan to do that. It just kind of evolved and developed, and it was great. It was great. But, in the middle of all of that great stuff happening, there was this really odd thing going on, which was as I became more and more successful and earned more money and bought more things, and I'm not saying it's a causal relationship, but I was more anxious and I was no happier. I was probably less happy, and that really made me think about, like, what is this about? And even with, like, there's a really interesting, it's actually a scripture. It's in 1 Timothy 6 where it says, the love of money is the root of all evil, right? And that gets misquoted as money is the root of all evil. Well, no, money itself is just a resource, right? It doesn't, but I think it's like anything, Jodi. It depends on what that thing, whether it's money or whether it's alcohol or whether it's exercise or whether it's, a particular lifestyle, or it's about what that represents to us. And when, I probably equated for a long time, money and financial success and commercial success and businesses and employees and turnover and bottom line, I equated that with kind of who I was. And I think when you get this is a really philosophical door to open, but, when we get I think anyway, our sense of identity and self from something external, or something definitely that can be taken away, it's not a great place to be. And, so for me, just that kind of, I guess that light bulb when I went, how come my life's going so great, but I don't feel it? What is that about?
Yeah.
And while, of course, we need to exist and coexist in a physical three-dimensional world with other people and businesses and government and weather and traffic lights and cars and, we need to do the human thing, but also, we're much more than just a body and just an employee and, I mean this with respect to a parent or a child or, we're all of that and we're more. And I think that like, who am I and how am I? And, where we start to do that inner, which we've done a bit of a deep dive before on my show of that, why am I the way I am and why do I think the way that I think? And does that thinking serve me or sabotage me? I feel like I didn't answer your question at all, but hopefully there was something interesting in that.
Oh, always. I could talk to you for hours. But I think, well, where we started was talking about the PhD and obviously, I mean, perhaps now's a good time just to share with listeners on my show what it is that you are researching in light of what you've just shared with us.
Yeah, sure. So maybe I'll just explain. So very broadly, and I'm sure your listeners, and most of them know anyway on a really kind of fundamental level, so metacognition is really just thinking about how we think, how I think. So a metacognitive process would be me thinking after I get off this chat with Jodi, it would be me saying, oh, why did I talk about myself so much? Or why did I say that? Or how come when in the middle of that I was anxious or I was, where I'm starting to become, in a healthy way and in a self-awareness way, I'm starting to recognize the fact that I think a certain way around certain people, or I have stories that I create that aren't necessarily reflective of what's actually real. So metacognition is thinking about your own thinking, having an awareness of how other people think, or a curiosity around how does Jodi experience this. So right now for us recording this, I would be like, I wonder what this is like for Jodi. I wonder what Jodi's in the moment experience of me and this conversation is right now. And some people are almost like, oh, I don't care what people think of me, stuff them. I'm just going to be me. And if they don't like it, that's kind of makes sense, but it doesn't really. And the reason is because it actually matters that we understand how other people think, because now that doesn't mean we need to agree with them. That's the asterisk.
Yeah.
So can I understand how this person who isn't like me and maybe doesn't have my beliefs or values, or not better or worse, just different, can I understand them? Because if I can understand them, and by the way, now we work together, he's a new employee or she's a new employee, now we're working together, it's in my interest and our interest and the company's interest for us to get on, to be able to talk, develop rapport, solve problems together, be teammates together, resolve conflict if necessary. And that happens when we can understand others. We can understand their version of right now. So that's level 1 and 2. So that's, metacognition and theory of mind. And then level 3 is the core of my research, which is metaperception. Or it can be called the external self-awareness, which is my ability to understand somebody else's impression of me. And the question at the core of my research is, what's it like being around me? So you as a listener, you could say to yourself, what is the insert your name? experience like for others? So for me, it would be, what's the Craig experience like for the audience? What's the Craig experience like for Jodi? What's the Craig experience like for my mum and dad? Now, this is not coming from a place of insecurity or ego, but rather one of comprehension and understanding and an awareness bigger than me. Because when I can understand that, although my intentions in this moment are good, there might be some people listening that think I'm an idiot or that I'm arrogant or that I'm right. And so being able to understand that my intention is not necessarily someone else's experience of me.
Yes.
And paying attention and being aware. So if, for example, I'm talking to someone and I'm trying to support them or encourage them, or they've come to me to, get a bit of help. And I realize that in this moment, this person that's followed me for 3 years on social media and heard 100 podcasts, and now they're sitting in front of me, they're really nervous or they're intimidated or whatever. It's in my interest and theirs to be able to recognize that and say, all right, so let me try and move forward and see if I can help them be less anxious or less terrified. So that's that, and also maybe they're terrified of me. So really, meta-perception is about understanding how others perceive me. And if I have a better insight into how an audience, whether it's an audience of 1 or 1,000, experiences me, then that empowers me or enables me to create better connection, to be able to work together, like I said, solve problems, develop rapport. Imagine if you and me as corporate speakers, imagine if you stood up and you had 500 people in front of you and you're at a conference and everything that you're saying is relevant to the audience. You're really prepared. You've got 20 PowerPoints, 60 minutes, 3 minutes a slide. Your intro's good. Your outro's good. You're not stumbling on your words. Everything's great, except you're not creating any connection.
Yeah.
You're not reading the room. You're not building rapport. And you have no idea because you're just going through the protocol. You're just going through the thing that you've rehearsed. Now, if you have a degree of meta-perception and that kind of awareness, you might hit the brakes and go, all right, okay, put up your hand if, you're an overthinker. Then all of a sudden, everyone's like back and they're like, I'm an overthinker. Cool. Now put up your hand if that's not working out for you. Now, what you've done is you've created a pattern interrupt in the middle of a process that wasn't working.
Yeah. Because
you recognized people are looking at their phones. People don't seem to be engaged. People are not answering or asking questions. I'm getting all these indications that what I'm doing is not working the way I want it to. Yeah. So that's a kind of level of awareness, and meta-perception is in that. So yeah, my research is around that, and more specifically meta-accuracy, which is how well I can do it. And so I'm looking at how good are people at this thing, and can we train it?
Can we train it?
And can we train it? And also, what we would call some of the cognitive mechanisms, if there are any, or what are some of the things, be they cognitive, emotional, behavioral, what are some of the things that make people good at this thing?
Yes.
So I personally think being able to, just broadly speaking, understand how others think, not necessarily agree or align, but understand, it's an interpersonal superpower, and it's really something to work on.
Oh, my gosh, I don't know how to unpack this or where to start, but when you say about understanding how someone else is thinking, because I'm picturing a recent scenario, is this in terms of what they're thinking about us, or their experience of the time we're spending together? When you say when we can understand it, it's a superpower. Is that their experience of us in that moment? This this meta perception, is that? Am I understanding that right?
Yes. Yeah, keep going. Yep.
Oh, no, just it's so interesting, because when I think about what you were saying, the example that you were using, and as a speaker, if I'm with a group of people, you become attuned and experienced to kind of, and some people will say it's the energy in the room, feeling the room, reading the room, and just feeling this. You just develop this intuition around what the group needs, and And I wonder if whether or not there are a lot of us who are kind of using these skills but aren't aware that we're using them. And I don't know how I've developed that. I guess it's just experience of kind of knowing when people are engaged, it's their posture, it's their eye contact, it's the nodding, it's the sharing with someone next to them. I suppose I'm kind of talking it through out loud now. And maybe, you know, at a level below consciousness, my brain is sort of looking for these cues, and when I'm not seeing them, I'm like, right, I need to get everybody up. I need to shift things. I need to do something different to kind of bring everybody back, because, I mean, we know people's attention wanders anyway, no matter how riveting we might be. So can you tell us, so first of all, I want to say to listeners, if you want to get involved in supporting Craig with his research, I know, Craig, that you do shout-outs for people to come on board and do some online kind of testing. So how can, just obviously we're not winding it up yet, but how can people sort of get involved, because it's so darn interesting, and people like you need people like me and our listeners to get involved so that you can learn more and test your theories.
I'm going to be doing a shout out for participants to be involved in a public study that I'm doing at Monash. So I need people to do a bit of online stuff. And then if they do the online stuff and they submit that, then they basically will get a ticket to a free workshop with me. So there'll be a little bit more research done on the day, face-to-face, about an hour or so. But then I'm going to do an hour and a half to 2 hour workshop for people. But, you know, and again, I don't expect people to be knocking down the door. But if anyone would love to help, it's awesome for me and it really helps. And probably the easiest way is just to follow me. So on, say, Instagram, because I'll announce it there. That's probably the easiest place, which is just Craig Anthony Harper. Just do a search on my name. But it's just, I think the other thing to keep in mind, because, you know, people sometimes are very hesitant to try to understand, you know, for example, someone who's, for want of a better term, in inverted commas, bad, right? We go, oh, they're a bad person, or they're evil, or they're, and, you know, there's a very, very famous warrior from 1,000 years ago called Sun Tzu, who wrote a book called The Art of War. And among many other things, not that I'm a fan of war, in fact, I'm a hater of war, but among many other things, he wrote, keep your friends close and your enemies closer, or a version of that. And he said, you know thy enemy, and all of these things. And what that represents to me, whether or not this was his intention or not, but even understanding people who perhaps have a bad agenda, or perhaps online haters. I mean, I have a reasonably big platform, so I get some reasonably regular hate.
Sorry to hear that.
Yeah, my response around all of that is more curiosity than anything. So I won't get into any online anything, or even any face-to-face anything for that matter, in terms of, you know, hate. But I'm interested in whether or not people agree with me, disagree with me, or it doesn't matter. I'm interested in understanding them. Now, understanding somebody who is doing what we might think are terrible things, that doesn't endorse them. That actually gives us more of a chance, you know, to, like, you can't overcome what you don't understand, you know. And so I think it's good for us to understand things good and bad. You know, to understand war, to understand evil, to understand the bad things that people do and why, because, you know, insight and awareness and understanding is never a bad thing, not in this context anyway. So, you know, for me, I've you know, because I'm old and I've done a lot of things, but I've dealt with a lot of very, very difficult, confrontational, periodically violent people. You know, when I was young, I worked in pubs for 4 years doing security and got punched in the face 1,000 times. And I'm used to and comfortable with, I don't love it, but I'm used to confrontation, be that, you know, whatever. And I'm not interested in getting involved, but I'm okay with it, you know. And for me, it's like, this is someone who's never drunk, by the way, and never used drugs, and never been to a nightclub ever except to work. You know, so for me, I was just fascinated. Even when I was 23, 4, 5, working in pubs and clubs, I was more fascinated with the human behavior with, oh, why does this guy who earns $400 a week spend $300 on a Friday night?
Yes.
What is that about?
Yes.
Just that. I'm a little bit weird, but yeah, I
No.
think understanding others is really important, like for parents, for teachers, for bosses, for employees, for anyone who wants to solve problems, work with other people, coexist in a harmonious way. It matters.
It does matter. It does, because we're all so different, and we grow up believing other people are like us, that, everyone's like us. And then you learn as you get older that no one's like you, or, no one's just like you. And I think it builds more acceptance. You've reminded me, and I'm going to share this, and this is something I was chatting to Carly about actually on the phone, and I feel, I want to say embarrassed, but I'm going to share it because I think it's important in light of what you were saying. And I won't say any names, but I was at a party recently, and I'm not drinking, haven't been drinking for 4 months now. Not that I was a massive drinker, but just made a decision to give it up. And so it was very late. And one of our friends, and it had been a weird day. I'm just going to say that. It had been a weird day. I wasn't I wasn't as relaxed and chilled as I often, will be. And somebody at the party started talking about climate change and that they disbelieved that humans have contributed to it. And I feel very strongly in the opposite. And in that moment, and this is what is really out of character for me, in that moment, under those circumstances, late at night, in this environment, I said, you know what? I can't have this conversation with you. I don't think it'll end well. Not because I was drinking, but just because in that moment, I actually feel as though I went into fight or flight. I actually think it made me feel very anxious. This idea that this person, and if this person's listening, I adore this person, and they're a very important part of our friendship circle. But in this moment, I'm just like, I can't do this because I don't know where it's going to go, and, we're at a party, Anyway, the next day I was reflecting on it. I was chatting to Pete. I was saying, oh, this happened last night. And he's like, oh, really? I had no idea. And I'm like, well, no, this happened. And I ended up sending a message to my friend, saying, hey, I'm really sorry. I'm really sorry that I wasn't in the frame of mind to be curious and to listen and to hear your views and respect your views, and to open a discussion where I could learn something and that we could have this, this dialogue around it. And he was fantastic and wrote back and said, don't worry about it. He probably hadn't given it another thought. But for me, it was like, it's uncharacteristic, and I don't want to be that person that wants to shut someone down because it's difficult or it's complicated, or there's and I usually am very open to have conversations about a differing of opinion, and I'm very open to say, oh, I have a different opinion, and have that, respectful conversation. In this moment, under these circumstances, I didn't, and I regretted it, and I apologised for it. And I'm sharing that because, it doesn't paint me in a great light, but I'm okay because I'm human, but I'm sharing that because when we are open to other people's point of views, especially when they're different, we learn and we grow. And like you said at the start, who do we want to become? Not what do we want to do, what do we want to achieve, what do we want to accomplish? We all have those hopes and dreams. But who do we want to become, I think, is such a powerful question that you've posed here today. And I thank you for that, because I think when we started off talking about this gap between information and application, and you speak so wisely and intelligently around it, and you've got so much experience where that gap is large.
Yeah.
And I wonder if today, having this conversation and you posing that question about who do you want to become is going to maybe be that tipping point, maybe be that light bulb for people, so that there might be that change, that willingness to, I've been sitting here thinking while we've been yakking, I do my 3 CrossFit a week, and I've got my 1 basketball a week. And somebody said to me the other day when we were doing a warm-up for CrossFit, do you run? Are you a runner? I said, I want to be a runner. I want to be a person who says, yes, I'm a runner. I am not that person. And I'm like, why? If I want to do it, what's stopping me? Discomfort, inconvenience. You know, I've got other times I need to do more movement and I walk the dog and stuff. But like, we've all got room for personal growth. My personal growth is very different to yours and very different to the next person's and to the listeners. But there's room. Who do we want to become? And what's the first step we can take? So what are your final kind of comments before we finish up for the day?
I wrote a post the other day, which is really relevant, that I think you saw, but it's on Instagram, and it says, somebody not sharing your values or beliefs doesn't make them wrong, evil, or the enemy. It makes them not you.
Yeah.
Right? And the message that I wrote around it was, I'm not sure if it gets more airtime, I'm just paying more attention, or there's actually more hate, division, and self-righteousness in the world, but whatever's happening in this space isn't working. Here's the good news. You and I don't need to participate in the hate. We can be outliers. We can identify and work on our own shortcomings, flaws, and issues. We can do our best, do the best we can with what we have to work with. We could even sneak in some love, kindness, and compassion into the world. And I mean, I think it's important that we have people that don't think like us in our lives. I think it's important that, you know, if all of my friends, and this won't be popular to say in some quarters, but if all of my friends are like me, think like me, share my beliefs, behave like me, if all of my friends are pretty much a version of me, then I'm living in an echo chamber and or a cult.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, it's like confirmation bias. I'm sure you've explained that to your listeners, but if I only pay attention to the stuff that suits me, I'm deluding myself.
Yeah.
But when I go, well, Jodi thinks A and I think B, and that's cool. I love Jodi. She believes that climate change is this. I believe it's that. Doesn't matter, though. It doesn't. Our friendship and relationship is not contingent upon agreement.
Correct.
Like,
yes.
If we have to agree to have a friendship, well, that's not love. That's not a friendship. That's that's a strategic alliance built on, you know, a certain value system that you and or a tribe that you and I think we need to belong to.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and this, like, we live very much in a time now where thinking for yourself is really quite discouraged. And you know, living in groups and cliques and cults where, like, we're on this team, they're on that team, we're right, they're wrong.
Yeah.
And it could be a, you know, an exercise, could be, I don't want to name any particular, you know, but it could be a food group, it could be an exercise group, it could be a political group or a cultural group or a sporting group, or it's like, we're right there. And it's just like, come on, we're all human. Like, we're all flawed. We're all amazing. We're all a bit terrified. We're all a bit brave. You know, let's just love each other. Like, and I know that sounds naff and cliche, but for me, doesn't matter how far or wide I search in terms of trying to understand human behavior. For me, if what I do, and again, maybe some people won't believe this, but for me, my internal sat nav, my platform for operating has got to be love, and in all its forms, kindness, attention, care, you know, support. And that doesn't mean that you've got to be weak or an emotional doormat, by the way.
No.
But unless I'm coming from a place of love, then I'm generally coming from a place of selfishness. And that doesn't, as I say to people, I gave selfishness a really good go for decades. And I'm very good at it too. But it doesn't work. It doesn't equal joy, fulfillment, purpose, connection. It doesn't equal that.
It doesn't. And we need other people. And one of the things we chatted about on the phone the other day, and you know, I'd love to talk to you on the pod again at another time, was this idea that, you know, we've got all the knowledge and technology and ease of living. You know, we've got a robot vax and we've got our coffee machine with pods and we've got, you know, life can be very easy if we have all these gadgets, and we can make life simple for ourselves. But things are getting worse. Mental health, weight, physiological health, you know, education, financial stress. It's a challenging time in which we live, and we need other people. We need to, and with curiosity around, and this is a word I know you use a lot, and curiosity around others, with love for ourselves and love for others and connection, then it reduces the divisiveness and the and it can be dangerous when we're not willing to be open-minded, and we don't need to have our minds changed, and we don't need to try to change other people's minds, but just to be open to having conversations, connecting with people, and celebrating alignment where there is it, and learning something and growing when there isn't. There's so much to talk about, and I just adore you. I love the work you do. I am so grateful, that years ago you invited me onto your podcast, and I was terrified. Oh my gosh, I was so anxious. And now we chat like we've known each other for decades, and I really applaud everything that you're doing and the way that you share your own personal journey of growth along the way with everyone, in addition to all of your other knowledge and wisdom. So I just want to say a huge thank you for joining us. And how can people, other than Craig Anthony Harper on Instagram, people can tune into the You Project and Life with Craig Harper? Tell us a little bit more. So if anyone, I'm sure there's many, want to jump on board and connect with you and your wonderful work, how can they do it?
Sure. So, you can just follow me on social media, on Facebook and on Instagram and all of that. You can go to my website. There's a bunch of stuff on there, like access to lots of things I've done and videos. You can listen to my podcast. I will give you a warning. I'm a little bit sweary. So
a little bit sweary.
To the Light FM people, I apologise. Maybe I am not for you. I'm definitely not for everyone, and I'm okay with that.
None of us are. None of us are.
I'm not for everyone. Let's just say that. But I'm always doing stuff, and I've written a few books and all of that. So, there's always ways to. But if nothing else, maybe just follow me on Instagram. I post 1 or 2 things daily, and most of the things that I post are just kind of little, 1 to 5 or 6 lines of, info, inspo or ejo, and it's just like fundamental stuff that might be like a nice little kind of thing to ponder for the day, or it might be a little kick in the bottom, or it might be like a bit of a light bulb or whatever. But, I try to keep all of my stuff really relatable and down to earth. So, but thanks for having me, Jode. I love you too. You're amazing. You are way better than you think. You're a great podcaster. You're a great teacher. And what is also, and I'm not just, trying to make you feel good or sound good.
You are making me feel good though, so keep going.
Well, you are, in an ocean of podcasts and podcasters, you are genuine and authentic. And there is what I love about you is there's no persona. There's just Jodi the person. Yeah. And everyone, I can tell you, if you've never met Jodi on air is Jodi off air. Same. There's no difference. There's no show. There's no role playing. There's no insincerity. It's all authentic, all real deal. And I love that you have that, while you don't have huge confidence at times and you get anxious at times because you're human, what always comes through, even if, as I do as well, even if we stumble here and there with a few words, or it's not as super slick or polished as we want, it's always real. Yeah. And authenticity will always outshine all the other stuff. So keep doing what you do. You're a gift.
Oh, thank you. I feel the same about you. Thank you, Craig. Thanks again so much for your time. I know how precious it is, and always love chatting with you. So thanks again for joining us, and listeners, thank you. I hope you loved that chat just as much as I did. Don't forget to jump on over to Insta or Facebook and check out Craig and his wonderful work, always words of wisdom. Thank you for joining me, and I cannot wait to be back with you for another episode next Wednesday. Okay, see ya. Bye. Thank you so much for joining me for this week's episode. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe and leave a review. To keep the conversation going, I'd love you to join me over on Instagram. You'll find me at Dr. Jodi Richardson. Also, if you'd like a copy of my free 5-day mini email course, Calm Your Anxious Brain, then jump over to my website, drjodirichardson.com, and you can sign up down the bottom. I've really enjoyed having your company. Thanks so much. See you next time.